Hi everyone, nice to see some of you online in this cold wintry weather. I don't know where you guys are based. I'm in Gqeberha in GQ and it just started raining about half an hour ago. So it's freezing and I'm sitting here with a hot water bottle on my lap to keep my hands and feet warm while I talk to you. How is everybody this evening? Everybody good? Guys, these sessions, so we'll have one session every week on a Wednesday, unless that, I think one of the Wednesdays that we've got will be the same day that your task is due. So we won't have a class on that evening, but I will upload a detailed pacer or schedule for you guys with all of those details on. Yep, I'm just checking here. Next month, August 21st, your task is due on that Wednesday evening. So we won't have a class that day because you guys will be very busy completing your task. But other than that, every Wednesday evening, unless otherwise advertised, we will have a collab. Okay, so these collabs are they're not formal, guys, and they're meant to be an interactive session where you guys have got access to us as the tutors, where you can ask questions, chat to us about anything that you're worried about, anything at all that you want to know. We will try and help you, and if we can't help you, then we'll direct you to whoever the correct person is that will be able to help you with any questions. So while we're busy on the chat, if you've got any questions or you think of anything while we're busy chatting, you can just type in the chat box. You can chat to each other in the chat box, ask questions, make notes, whatever you want to do. You're free to do that. And then also, if you've got a question and it's too long to type or it's quicker to do that, just pop up your hand and you can open your microphone and you can talk. It's always easier to do that, and it's nice for me to hear somebody else's voice besides my own as well. So we will do that, okay? Always my first question that I get, ma'am, where's the past papers and where are the answers to the past papers? Okay, so you want to know, can we go over the past paper for the first semester exam? I'm going to just have to double check on that because obviously the 2024 exam papers are written for 2024. So that would be tantamount to me giving you answers, although you probably won't get the identical paper. The papers are written together as a set when they're written for each year. Oh no, my love, you wrote it already and now you've missed 4%. You're saying you missed the exam by 4% or you missed your pass by 4%? Did you get 46 for the module? Oh, the exam. Oh no. Oh, 26, yeah. And how on earth did you manage to do that? 70 overall and then only 26 for the exam. Yeah. Is that Christopher speaking? I can just see it just says C. Oh, it is Christopher. I thought so. Hi. Oh my word, and I still saw you wrote a note for me on your exam paper and I felt so awful for you. I know you worked hard. Yeah, that's so disappointing because I know you worked hard that semester. Chris, as I said, I must, shame it, but you'd also been very sick that semester as well a couple of times, so you didn't have a very good semester. I'm going to just double check. But you've already written the paper, so it's probably going to be all right because the others obviously haven't seen the paper. So, yeah, I think I'll be able to do that for you. I don't have that paper scanned in, but when we when we get closer to doing the exam revision, when we go over full exam papers, then I will do that. We can add in the 2024 paper. I should be able to get away with doing it. I will just have to double check to make sure that they don't consider that still being the same exam sitting, because we're not allowed to share papers. So in other words, if you write in a 2024 SUP, we're not allowed to practice with the 2024 paper 1 with those students, because the papers are obviously similar. But I'll double check. Okay. Melanie, you also failed the exam and your overall mark was 65. Oh no, that's awful, man. You know, I don't know. I'm just trying to remember. It's a while since I marked the paper, so I can't remember exactly what questions that they had in that paper. But I don't recall it being too different from the usual style of questions. So the only thing that I can say to you guys, and I know that I said this often during the semester, is that all the way through the semester, when you're practicing, particularly when you're revising for the exam, you must practice by doing questions and then take a question, blank paper, and then attempt the question on the blank paper, get as far as you can get, and then go and look at the solution and mark yourself. And then close off the solution and go back, blank paper, and you do the question again. And you repeat that process, even if you've got to do it 3, 4, 5, 6 times, until that question answer flows. And when you write the solution down, you are getting it 100% correct. And then you go on and you practice with another question. It honestly is the only way to familiarize your brain with all the different variables and formulas and aspects that you've got to remember, because there's a lot to remember in this module. You've got 7 learning units, and they're packed with information, different variables, different formulas. So the only way to prepare is just to spend hours practicing. Oh, you just had a bad day. You were prepared. You know that, and things like that can happen. Oh no, that's really awful. And you know, it just takes a little thing to throw us, and then nothing goes right. As you say, if it's a bad day, you can have a bad start, and then nothing goes right. Oh, that's awful. And Melanie's also in the same boat as you. Armita, are you? Did you do the module last semester as well, or are you a new student this year to FINM7321? I can't remember all of the students' names. I'm just trying to remember if your name was on the list first semester. Okay, so you are a new student. All right. Perfect. Okay, so anybody got any other questions before we start? So this evening I'm just going to do a bit of intro, because remember these sessions are recorded, so those students that aren't on here, they can go over this afterwards so that they can catch up. So I'm going to do a bit of intro to the module for those students that are new. Those of you that have seen it before, we'll just have a refresher, and then we'll see if we've got time to do a couple of questions as well. And this semester, I'm going to try, again, like we did last semester, to fit in as many questions as possible. In other words, working through questions as possible in our sessions. Okay. Yeah, so remember always, guys, you're welcome to ask any questions. You've got that, the contact your tutor option on your menu in your module, and if you click on that, that email comes directly to my inbox, and I'll be able to see that and answer you. Excuse me. Otherwise, you can also always email me. You can reply to an email that I've sent to you, or otherwise, let me just put it in the chat box here. I spell that right before I press enter. Okay, or otherwise you can email me. Just please, guys, take note that if you do send me an email, please make sure that in the subject line you put the module code in there, FINM7321 Group 1, or whatever your group is, because I have several different groups all together, and if I just get an email with a name, I don't know immediately which module that student is messaging from, because sometimes we've got several hundred students in a semester. So you're welcome to email me, just as long as you identify, and not just your student number. I need to know what module code and group you are in. That's more important to me with an email than your student number. Okay. So just as going through the intro, this is as big as I can make it. And remember, if the screen is a little bit small on your side, you guys can control that on your screens. Top left-hand side of your screen, you've got the little magnifying glasses, and you can enlarge it there if you need to. So your resources for this module are very important, is your textbook. You absolutely cannot survive this module without a textbook. You must get the textbook. Every now and again, I get students asking me, ma'am, do I have to buy the textbook? And the answer is absolutely yes. This particular textbook, these EDGE textbooks, are excellent, and they are really good for students working on their own at home, because you can literally start on page 1, do the readings, work through the example, and then practice the question that follows, and then move on to the next section, do the reading, work through the example, practice with the question that follows. That's how the textbook is structured, which really makes it easy for a student to work through each learning unit on their own. So I really like these textbooks. And obviously, as you go through any questions that you're doing or examples, if you don't understand how you got to a certain answer, or if they haven't been clear in putting the steps of a calculation down in the textbook, just ask me, say, ma'am, please tell me what are the calculations for this answer, and I'll let you know. Don't be shy to ask. Sometimes when I go through a textbook for the first time, or I'm revising a question for a class, I've often got to sit and work out for a good few minutes as to what on earth they did to get to a particular answer. So I don't expect you guys to know it as well. So your financial calculator is also prescribed. But if you don't or can't, I know a lot of students don't buy the financial calculators because they are expensive, then just take note of the way the instructions for financial calculators are written in the textbook, and you are allowed to use that same method of writing the steps of the calculation down on your answer page, and you can get away with that without a financial calculator. Obviously, you won't be able to work out the final answer, but you'll get the mark writing down all the steps. I'll explain when we do a question like that. I'll show you what I mean. But obviously, if you can get a financial calculator, please do. The Sharp EL738 is the one that they recommend. And then obviously you'll be able to use that calculator forever. I've got an old Sharp financial calculator, and this is just an EL733. And I've had this calculator since 2015, and I'm still using it. And I use it every day. So it won't be a waste of money if you are going to go into some kind of financial job. Then they've got recommended readings here, which are the Garrison and the Gitman and the Mayer. These are other textbooks. You should possibly be able to find those in a VC library if you go to one of the campuses, or if you have got access to any library that keeps textbooks. If you've got a university in close to where you live, usually they allow other students to get library access, and you'll possibly find these kinds of books there as well. And it is nice just to maybe go one day and browse through other cost and management accounting textbooks just to see how they're formatted and what the layout, etc. is. The one that I actually studied when I studied this was, it was a Gitman, but it wasn't Principles of Managerial Finance. There was a Gitman Cost and Management Accounting, and also this Garrison, the same one. So you can see these textbooks, 14th edition, and what is the Gitman's 13th edition. So students have been using these textbooks since the year dot, because I'm not young anymore, and these are the textbooks that I studied from when I did my my degree. Then they've given you two websites here as well, accountingcoach.com. You guys might have come across that. I know even from first year accounting, students sometimes use that. It's a very simple website, but what it does have is some little quizzes and things that are nice for students to practice with. And then SEMAglobal.com, which is the management account. SEMA is the management accountant's qualification. So they have got their own website as well. So you can also go and find some interesting information there. But those extra resources, you don't have to study anything from them. Your textbook is 100% all you need for studying. You can use those others as extra reading material to maybe clarify points or to some of those other textbooks have got maybe like a nicer write-up, a nicer discussion, where the Edge textbook often doesn't have a lot of discussion, but it's got a lot of calculations. So from that point of view, some of those other books are good. Then we've got our assessments. So again, you're going to do 4 ICE tasks. And if you do all 4 of those ICE tasks, you are then guaranteed 10% towards your final module mark. In other words, if you get 4 ICE tasks, you'll get 100% for ICE, and 10% of that 100% will be 10% towards your 50% that you need to pass. So your ICE tasks are complete no-brainers. All you've got to do is just hand them in, and you've got that 10%. So make sure you do that. Then your first task is going to count 25%, and that's your first 2 learning units. The role and environment of the financial manager, and then the time value of money. So we're going to do these 2 learning units and complete them prior to the 21st of August, which is when you are going to be writing your, that task is due. 21st of August is task 1 due date. Please guys, just triple check on your pairs that date is right. It's the date that I got off the pairs, but you guys must always just triple check on the pairs, as you must make sure you've got the latest pairs, and it's your job to make sure that you've got the correct date and you know when it's due. Obviously, I'll give you reminders in announcements at but you know, anything can go wrong, can get sick or whatever, and not be able to send you a reminder. So you must be take ownership of that yourself as the student. So the students last semester also, and most years, they don't battle with the tasks. They usually get very good marks for the tasks. And I'm sure that Christopher and Melanie will vouch for that. So your big hurdle is the exam at the end of the year, because your tasks are time limited. You've got basically, they say 24 hours. So the question paper is made available to you for 24 hours, and then the task has to be handed in. So your time is limited, but it is open book. So you should be able to pass those 2 and get really good marks for your tasks. Your problem comes in with the exam, which counts 35%. It's the heaviest weight towards your final mark, but that is a 3-hour sit down on campus closed book exam. So it's very different to the way you do your assessments for the rest of the semester. But so you have to make sure that right from day 1 of the semester, you are preparing for a sit down closed book assessment, that's how you are revising and studying all the way through the semester. Assessment preparation guidelines. So all of this information that I've got on these slides comes out of your module outline, which is a very important document. I have uploaded it in more resources. You guys have got access to it in your student materials. I think for this module, it's the only item that is uploaded in student materials, but it is a very important document because everything that VC wants you to know about this module, or that information that they can give you to assist you to pass it, is in this document. So the important things here are that for task 1, you ensure that you work through all the revision questions. So the revision questions are those revision questions at the end of every chapter in Learn Unit 1 and Learn Unit 2, because those revision questions are usually the style of question that they use in the exams, as well as the other questions within the chapter. And then check if you're confident that you can answer questions relating to all of the learning objectives. So what they're saying there is, guys, pay attention to what the learning objectives are, because those learning objectives are your assessment brief that they are telling you what they are going to ask you. Okay, learning objectives, they're not allowed to ask you anything that's not a learning objective. So this is just basically how a very broad semester plan. So we're going to go through the first 2 learning units. Then you've got task 1 on the 21st of August. I didn't count the weeks, but I think it's probably about 4 weeks. And then where are we now? 24th of July. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, there's exactly 4 weeks. And then task 1 date is due. So we've got 2 weeks to cover LU1 and 2 weeks to cover LU2. Okay, so 4 weeks from today until task 1 is due. But in all likelihood, we will probably only do LU1 this week, and I'll spend the next 3 weeks doing Learning Unit 2 and then some revision, because Learning Unit 2 has got a lot more calculations in it than Learning Unit 1. But we'll see how you go, and obviously if there's anything that you guys want from your side, you let me know, and then I'll incorporate that into our classes. And then after that, we've got 2 learning units, risk and return and interest rates and bond valuation, and then that's supposed to be task, not test, and then task 2 on the 1st of October, which is probably another 4 weeks after that, 4 weeks and then the next task. Then we've got 3 learning units, and then the exam, which is that first week of November. We start exams in that week. Financial calculators. So this is, and if you can't read this very clearly on the screen, please, I want you to go and have a look at this page in your module outline. In this, in FINM7321 and FINM7322, specifically put this page related to financial calculators in the module outline, because students do battle with the financial calculator. They've got questions about it. So they have got this little intro and discussion and explanation. Remember, I was saying just now on how you, even if you don't have a financial calculator, you can still get your 90% of the marks for a question if you write the answer down in this format. In other words, you write the answer on your answer book, you tell us what your keystrokes would be on the financial calculator, what your inputs would be. Okay, so go over that page in your module outline. It is important, and that's also why I've added it into this document. Then Learning Unit 1, which is what we're going to be looking at first this evening. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Okay, I am back. So hopefully you were reading the screen while I was offline. So at the beginning of every learning unit in your module outline, you've got a page that looks like this. Theme breakdown. So in LU1, we've got 2 themes. Theme 1, the role and the environment of the financial manager. And then theme 2, they've headed at financial institutions, but really the second theme, the most important part of the second theme is this: calculate and interpret the economic value added of an entity. In other words, what we call the EVA. Sorry, I never managed to get that in the right place. The EVA calculation. It's the only calculation in Learning Unit 1. It is important because remember, in your first test, you're only getting tested on Learning Unit 1 and Unit 2. The rest of Learning Unit 1 is some very basic theory, and then you've got this EVA calculation. So in all likelihood, in most of our task ones or test ones, they include one question of, I don't know how many marks, but 15, 20 marks on an EVA calculation. So make sure that you have practiced some EVA questions. So the other ones, these ones here are all theory, define, finance. Always look at the action word because that tells you how you will be tested. Define, so that means you're going to have to describe or give a definition of what do we mean by finance. Identify the primary activities of a financial manager. Again, that means list them, describe them, give examples. And then the third one, explain. So again, the word explain means they'll give you they'll word the question in some way, and then you've got to be able to say, compare wealth maximization to profit maximization, and how is wealth maximization measured, and what is our measurement that we use for profit maximization, and any little bit of discussion between those two. But you can see define, identify, explain, theory questions. So that's the way you must prepare for those, is prepare to be able to write a small paragraph or answer 3 or 4 or 5 mark questions on those learning objectives. Then these two here are explain and discuss. So those are obviously also theory questions. And so that is how you must prepare for them. Paragraph type answers or a discussion or an explanation. They could even again give you one of those infographic type things. So this one is explain the relationship between financial institutions and markets. And this one is discuss the role and operations of the money market and capital markets. So you must read through your textbook with these first 5 learning objectives. Make your own little summary notes. Write up your own little practice paragraph type answers to various questions that they could possibly ask you. Practice with, I don't know, whatever your preferred method is of learning paragraph type questions, whether it's using mind maps. I used to find for myself what used to work really well is drawing up some kind of a little diagram, a picture, a little pathway, a garden, a flower with 5 petals, if there's 5 things that I must remember. Whatever you can think of, those are the types of things that help you to remember paragraph type questions that you've got to memorize much easier. And remember, the memorization part is going to come in for the exam. You will open book for the task, and then paragraph type questions for later on learning units. Exam, closed books. You must, you'll have to memorize them. What was the other word I was trying to remember now? Not an anagram. Oh, I won't think of it now. I'll think of it in a minute. And then your last one, the only one where there is an actual this one here where we've got to calculate. So again, the point I'm trying to make and to reiterate for you guys online and those listening, that module outline isn't just a document that the IIE put together as like a little nice to have for the students. It's literally your assessment brief, okay, those learning objectives. And students seem to have forgotten that, because when I mark papers, I can see they haven't prepared for those learning objectives, and when they get a question, the answer paper is just blank. So that is important. Okay, so this is just an example of a question that this one came from a 2020 test, and this one is just to give you an example of the type of questions that they can ask you from those first 5 or 6 learning objectives from Learning Unit 1, just to show you what the question could look like and how they like to word the question. So they generally will give you some kind of a little scenario or case study and set a scenario for you, set a scene with a situation and a problem, and you're a financial manager, and then they ask you to solve that problem or to give advice to the board of directors, or how would you explain to an intern that's with you for a work experience, etc., etc. So that's the kind of way they'll ask you. So they try and put you in a real life situation to then explain and talk about those learning objectives in a real life situation. So in this one, if you could just read the screen so long. Okay. So like I described, they have said, yeah, you're the investment manager for an asset management company, and you've been asked to give a presentation to a new intake of graduates for the company's internship program. So for 6 marks, okay, and this is one of the, when you see required and a question number, you go straight here and you put in context for yourself immediately how many marks this question is going to be for. Because if this question is for 6 marks, how long is that going to, or should I say not going to, how long must you spend on that question and not 1 minute more? Okay. Because if you go over that time, that means you've immediately stolen time from some other question. So you'll hear a lot of the way I'm talking, I'm orienting towards talking about the exam when you're sitting down for that closed book assessment, because that is the mountain that you've got to climb at the end of the semester. So they want us to name, please, again, pay attention to all the parts that they've asked you. They've said name. So that's one thing they've asked you to do. And discuss. Okay. Any 2. So how many primary responsibilities or activities of financial managers? Okay, so it's the primary responsibilities that they want, because in your textbook you've got primary and you've got secondary. So you can see how much important it is. It's a tiny little sentence, but there is a lot that you have to pay attention to. You must do 2 things. Firstly, you must name 2 primary responsibilities. And secondly, you must discuss each of those 2 primary responsibilities. Okay. So Christopher's been practicing financial planning and analysis, primary responsibilities. They analyze past entity results as well as current market trends. Financing decisions involve identifying the most effective ways of sourcing funds that can be long-term loans. Yes, exactly. So also look at that 6 marks. So if it's 6 marks and they've asked for 2 responsibilities, you immediately know it's going to be 3 marks for each. And where they've asked for name and discuss, one of those marks will be for naming a responsibility, and then there'll be 2 marks for the discussion. So that immediately tells you exactly what has to be on that piece of paper in order to get the 6 marks. 2 names will be 2 marks, and then enough discussion for 2 marks. It's no use just giving a short discussion that you've only covered 1 point on that responsibility. There must be enough for me to be able to award 2 points to your discussion of each responsibility. Okay, so that also indicates how much information you must provide, besides just how long you must take to answer the question. And then the second one for 4 marks, explain. So our action word is explain to the graduate what role contractual institutions play in the operation of financial markets. Okay, so we want to discuss contractual institutions in the financial markets. And so here's a second part. In your answer, this is where what you must focus your answer around. Also provide an example. They often will ask you for an example. Name, discuss, example. Very, very common way of asking theory questions. So 4 marks. So provide an example will probably be for 1 mark, and the other 3 marks for explaining what role they play in the operation of the financial markets. And then 1 mark for the example. So this is just one question, but if you use that question as an example of how they will ask you these theory questions on this type of on this section of work where you've got to cover theory. Okay, let's see what Chris came up with for us. So Chris has got 1.2 legal frameworks, contractual institutions, establish the legal framework that governs transactions in financial markets. And this includes laws, regulations, and standards that define the rights and obligations of parties involved in financial transactions. And can you come up with an example for us, Chris? And then we'll go and see if you were correct. So the first one was, here, Chris got this right, financial planning and analysis. Remember this one, what did they ask us for? 2 primary responsibilities. So you could have said financial planning and analysis, or investment decisions, or financing decisions. Those are our 3 primary roles. So you can see how the marks have been allocated. There's 1 mark that's been put next to the name of the responsibility, and then 2 marks have been allocated to the discussion. And each of these discussions contain 2 points. So financial planning and analysis is one of the 3 primary roles. This includes the analysis of the entity's past results and current market trends. So Chris did get that right. He said analyzes past entity results, current market trends, and then in order to prepare financial forecasts and budgets. Okay. In order to prepare financial forecasts and budgets. So in other words, why are we doing that? Financial planning means we are planning for the future, and the future means we are doing forecasts and we are compiling budgets to give the company a guideline for the near future, normally for the next 12 months, and at the very longest for the next 5 years. We don't do any financial planning usually longer than a 5-year horizon. And then in terms of investment decisions, this decision involves identifying capital projects in which the entity is to invest. Okay, investment decisions means in what fixed assets should the company invest their resources. So again, think of it in terms of, give me an example of what this could entail. This could include the purchase and sale of property, plant, and equipment. And then the third one is financing decisions. And I think this is the other one that Chris gave us. Yes, financing decisions. So we know what our forward plan is. We have decided on what assets to invest in, and now we want to know how are we going to finance these investments that we want to make. So financing decisions involves identifying the most cost-effective sources of funding. That's important. In other words, we've always got to look at the cost of the capital that we are wanting to access. And then again, think in terms of, okay, now discuss that in terms of an example. These sources of funding could include long-term loans and or the issue of share capital, preference shares, bonds, etc. Anything to that effect. So really, I know this type of work, it's easy, so it's not really about what these answers are in terms of the words. What I want to use these sessions for is to show you how to take a question and make sure you answer it in the correct way that you get the maximum marks on that piece of paper. That strategy is absolutely key. If you don't know what to put on the piece of paper, even though it's an easy question, you could end up only going home with 4 of the 6 marks, for instance, because you didn't give 2 points in your discussion part. So that's why, remember, interpret those marks carefully. Because if you drop in small amounts of marks on each question, that builds up over the course of the I think the other 1.2, am I going to be able to there? So 1.2 was regarding the contractual institutions. So you can see what, let's see if Chris was correct. So contractual institutions are also known as non-bank financial institutions. So a contractual institution is a financial institution that is not a bank. They facilitate bank-related services such as risk pooling and contractual savings. So if you think in terms of, can you think of an example of a company? What type of company is involved in risk pooling? Contractual savings usually means we do it, we go and we sign a contract with this institution, and then that creates a savings contract with them over a certain length of time. So they've got here insurance companies or pension funds. Can you think of the name of a company or companies? Discovery Limited, yes, exactly. They do that type of work. What else? Old Mutual, Sanlam, those are the kinds of institutions we're talking about. So we know them as financial institutions, yes, exactly, Momentum as well, but not banks. Okay. Insurance companies and pension funds. So remember, it's not only insurance companies, because we're talking about a contractual, a type of financial contract is a pension fund or a retirement fund of some kind, that we sign a contract with the company and then we are going to save up with them from when we're 25 years old until we want to retire when we're 65. So pension funds, not just insurance companies. And insurance companies, we're talking about life insurance, not short-term insurance as such, okay? Risk pooling. So also if you think in terms of, oh, why is my brain doesn't want to remember these, the kinds of investments where you risk pool. So in other words, where the investment money of a pool of investors is put together in order to make a fund that is then invested on behalf of the whole pool of investors, similar to unit trust type investments. Okay, So it always helps if you remember Old Mutual and Sanlam and Momentum and Discovery. When you think about a contractual institution, then you're not going to forget that. And you'll know that you don't associate those names as being a bank, okay, other than Discovery, which now have a banking division. So rather maybe think in terms of Sanlam and Santam and Old Mutual and those kinds of companies. Momentum, they administer medical aid funds and those kinds of things, but they don't hold banking accounts for customers. Okay, so we can see our 4 marks for that one. Let's see how those 4 marks were allocated. So there was 1 mark for stating they are known as non-bank financial institutions and they facilitate bank-related services. So that was 1 mark. There was 1 mark for using the term risk pooling and 1 mark for contractual savings. And then 2 marks for examples, but you only would have been given 1 mark for an example. So either 1 mark for stating insurance company or 1 mark for stating pension fund. So here you can see at the top 3 marks for describing and 1 mark for a relevant example. So you did need to write down clearly and concisely 3 different points about a contractual institution and 1 example to get all 4 of those marks. So sometimes when I mark papers, I see students write a long paragraph, but that whole long paragraph is repeating the same fact in 3 different ways using wording of 3 different types. It has to be different facts, not the length of the paragraph that counts. Guys, I don't want to start this next question because I'm just looking at the time. I don't know if you guys have got another session at 7 o'clock, but we are supposed to finish at about 10 to 7 so that the students can log off and log on to another class if they have got one. Because we've got to finish up by 7 o'clock anyway. So what I'll do is next week, I'll cover this question, which is an EVA question, economic value added, which is that calculation that I was talking about as your learning objective. What was it, number 7 for this first learning unit. And I'd like to take time over it, maybe spend some time with the textbook and then do 1 or 2 EVA questions with you on screen so that this is then in your mind separately as one whole session, online session, okay? Because if I just try and hurry through it now, you won't remember anything and you'll be distracted. So I want you to go over everything that we have already, that we mentioned about these various pages. That we've gone through, which means go and open your module outline. Hopefully you have all downloaded it from student materials and pay attention to each of those pages with that information so that you're armed right at the beginning of the semester with all relevant information and you're not trying to take shortcuts as you get through to the tasks because you didn't read through that foundational information that you needed. Okay, so for homework, I'm going to give you a little bit of homework each week as well so that you can prep for next week, is to read through your learning unit 1 together with the learning objectives. Whoopsie. Making notes for each one as you go along. And then please read and work through the example at the end of the chapter on EVA. So I want you to pre-read that EVA, economic value added section, so that when we do it next week, you already have an idea. And then what I explain to you and what we work through online will just be clarifying it for you. Okay. And in this way, you're going to retain a lot more information and you'll be a lot more successful when it comes to the assessments. You'll be able to get through them quicker with better information, and you'll feel better about doing them. Okay, guys, anybody got any questions before we log off for the evening? Okay, perfect. So don't forget your homework, and think about everything we've said tonight. And then, yes, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Melanie. Thanks, Amita. Everybody's still there? Thanks very much. And I'll chat to you guys next week. Have a good week. Okay, guys. Bye.